What gives me hope is having heard the speech I heard this morning by Ambassador Ronnie Jameau from the Seychelles, where he was able to encapsulate his passion and his concern about the ocean as it's changing, how it's rebelling against humankind these days. It's eroding the life's blood of some of these small island states. And so he's trying to take his message to the oceans, to the Convention on Biological Diversity, and also to the Convention on Climate Change, where we really need to hold the line on what is happening to our atmosphere as well as to our ocean.
Hawaii biodiversity. Just anything you have in your mind. Hawaii.
Hawaii has beautiful coral reefs, tremendous life on the seabed. It's close to the deep sea. It's surrounded by the deep sea and the open ocean. It's oceans.
2011. Talk to me, if you could, about a UN mid-level biodiversity conference and how it might be good.
I think trying to bring together governments and government representatives to talk about biodiversity in the middle of the Pacific, in the ocean state, it would naturally help to put the oceans in the spotlight, so that would be very useful from my perspective. And I think it would actually show President Obama the value of the Convention on Biological Diversity, and if it were UN, it would also show him the need to move forward on the processes there too. That's because the Law of the Sea Convention is still also awaiting ratification or accession by the Senate. So it would be lovely if we could move both treaties along at the same time. Yes.
High sea issues that people of Hawaii, my people, should know about that occur. We're out there in the middle of nowhere.
The high seas surrounds Hawaii on every side. That's just 200 nautical miles. At 201, it becomes the high seas. The ecosystems out there don't respect that boundary. The species don't respect those boundaries. They will swim and they will eat and they will play maybe 202 miles offshore, and it's a pity if the U.S. can't protect it as effectively when it's just beyond that little boundary, that little blue line that becomes the EEZ.
What would you like to see Hawaii be aware of about high seas issues? Which issues in the high seas for Hawaii?
Well, I would love to see an extension of the new national monuments that have been designated for the Papahamana Umakuakea. I don't know if I could pronounce it properly, but that national monument is being affected by activities beyond its boundaries, and to start to look at how we can better manage those ocean waters too, and to make Hawaii very aware of the influences from the garbage, the overfishing that are occurring just outside of its boundaries, and to make that a center point of concern.
So tell us, what is CBD?
CBD is the Convention on Biological Diversity. And biological diversity is a term that scientists have used to represent the fullness of life. That's the variety and variation between species, differences between habitats where we live, and the way that all of this interacts to create ecosystems.
CBD's been around.
We've been talking about biological diversity since the late 80s. That was when a colleague, Elliot Norse, coined the term biological diversity and just sort of saw it as a shorthand phrase for, as I said, the richness of life. And he started trying to look at the marine environment, so marine biodiversity. I know we had the first conferences in 1988 in Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution.
Mm-hmm. What do you think people's impression of these events? I do see a lot of emptiness here. I don't see a lot of media. What's the challenge for CBD to get the word out?
Well, the CBD is a chance for governments to meet to try to talk about the importance of conservation in their own jobs and in their own lives. So it's not naturally a big media draw, but it is very important to bring the environment ministries together to learn from one another and to try to progress the cooperative framework under which they operate. So if we can learn from one another, we can actually start to progress what we're doing on marine conservation in our coastal zones, or work together to try to improve protection in the high seas.
What groups are most committed to CBD efforts?
So there's a wide variety of governments. CBD has the highest membership of any convention. There's 193 parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity now, so that means you have pretty much the full global representation.
Any comments about the U.S. and CBD?
Well, I do know the U.S. has long been a supporter of activities that help bolster the coastal and marine program of work. So I think they have played a very constructive role in some respects. It would be much easier if they were actually a party to the convention, because then they could play a larger role in decision-making processes, at least where they can be most constructive.
One person told me we use a lot of resources, we have responsibility.
Yes, well, that's quite true too.
Yeah. Are we going to win the race to repair and survive?
I'm an optimist by nature, so I have to believe we will. But I think it does require a huge effort to recognize the threats we are facing and to look at it not just from our own generation, but what's going to happen in 50 years from now. And it's very difficult to put that time context into political discussions where leaders come and go every 4 years or even every 2 years. But hopefully we will start to support and continue to elect wise leaders who have the interests of the future of the planet at heart.
Hana no e ka